Hey, can you guys hear me?
Hello, mate. Yep. Good.
All right, David, how are you?
I'm good, mate.
Very
What?
good, very good. Mark, I have been a fan for a very long time. I used to watch a lot of your videos, and it is really, really cool. Just like David was, very surreal. Also, to have you up here today, we really thank you for joining us. Are you there, Mark? All right. Well, anyway, guys, while when Mark gets situated over there, and Mark, if you just have to take you just have to, I don't know if you do spaces, but you just have to press the speaker button off mute. And let's see how many people we have in here. All right, great. So the title, and I don't know if you guys know, we actually had a earthquake in New Jersey today, which is really rare. Probably one of the more rare things that you will see. We do have the eclipse coming up on the 8th, which is putting a lot of energy out there. And that is what this conversation is about today. With David and Mark, we are going to talk about the way energy and frequency works in our matrix, and also how the elites use energy and frequency to manipulate the reality we live in. So, David, Mark, have you got situated yet over there? Can David, do you think you might be able to reach out to Mark and see if he is having trouble?
How would I do that?
I don't know. Hold on. Yeah, well, why don't you give your introduction, and I will do some things in the background.
All right then. Yeah. Yeah. Be great if we could get Mark up. See his microphone's off. Yeah. I'll just start by just doing some of the basics of energy and ritual, because this is something that we should know about en masse. It should be taught in the schools. It should be everywhere. But it's not, because of a simple equation. If you can keep from the target population information that is crucial for them to understand their plight, their situation, and you can retain that and keep it from them, you have a massive position of control, in the sense of, I'm just changing my chair here, a massive situation of control whereby you know how it works, but you make sure your target population doesn't. And this is really one of the foundation reasons, perhaps the foundation reason for secret societies, because they're passing on information through the generations that is kept out of the general circulation. So you are focusing and hijacking knowledge. And if you look at the world that we live in, it's basically a world based on a few having very significant knowledge about the way the world works, the way reality works, and the population not having that. And so people like me, Mark, and others, what we've been seeking to do over the years is take that information and make it available. And one of the things you find is that it's so fantastic what this secret society network knows, and it's fiercely compartmentalized. So, you know, the people at the inner core, the ones that really know what's going on. But it's so fantastic compared with what people in general are told through the education system and the media is how the world is, that it's often just by reflex action dismissed as that can't be true, that's ridiculous, that's far out. And so I'm sure we're going to we get Mark in a moment, we're going to hear some far out things. So
Yeah, well,
energy.
one thing I want to say before you continue, David, Mark, if you could just request to speak. I am trying to add you as a speaker, and I am unable to do so. I've never had this issue before, so I am asking the host to try to put you up as well. And if you could request to speak, that would be awesome. David, before we actually get into the whole dynamics of the elites during rituals, let's give a little background on, in your view, how energy and frequency work. So therefore, we can move from there to show how they manipulate that.
Yeah, that's where I was going next. People look through their eyes and they see form, and they appear to see empty space between it. That's only the way the body-brain genetic decoding system presents reality to them. In fact, what we perceive as empty space is energy. It's all energy. And energy is consciousness. And we are interacting with this energetic field. Think of a computer interacting with Wi-Fi. The Wi-Fi is influencing what goes on the computer screen as the computer decodes it. But you can also post things on Wi-Fi, on the internet, which impacts upon the internet. It's an interaction, an interactive game, if you like, between energy, states of consciousness. And so the key thing to appreciate is that not only are we living in a sea of energy frequency, we are generating frequencies every time we think and every time we feel emotion. And these frequencies, which have been worked out by even mainstream science, they have a frequency that relates to the nature of the thought, the nature of the emotion. So low frequency emotions like fear and anxiety, depression, conflict, hatred, all these things, they have a certain frequency. Whereas other states of being, love, joy, happiness, have other frequencies. And so we talk about vibes. We talk about, oh, I got good vibes from this bloke, or I got bad vibes from her. These are the frequencies that people are giving off. And it's one of the ways that you can read people, certainly read these, shall we say, demonic type people, is the energy that they're giving off. Because you see the smiley face, you see what's going on in their apparent outward demeanor, and that can kid many people to misread the personality they're dealing with. But
Hey, David, let me just say one thing. Mark, I am trying to get you up. Twitter is acting very strange today. I am a co-host, but I do not see the option to let you up. So I have to wait for the main account. So just hang. There you go. Hey, Mark, can you hear me? Mark. Well, I think X is. Are you there? I think X is really, really buggy today. But anyway, David, I'm going to wait for Mark to chime in, and you can continue where you were, and we'll figure out what's going on here.
Okay. So the way that you can read people is to feel literally the vibes, the frequencies that are coming off them, because they can often be very different to the facial and body language demeanor of the person involved. So what are rituals? Rituals are the focusing of attention to create particular levels of types of frequency. So you can get together with a group of people, and you can generate collective high frequency based on love, on joy. And you can feel these vibes. You walk into a room where there's been maybe a children's party and lots of happiness, and you can think, oh, what a lovely atmosphere in this room. What we call atmosphere is actually the nature of the energy in the place. And so you can go into another place, another building where there's been a lot of very negative things happen, and you can immediately go, oh dear, I don't like this. This is, oh dear, bad vibes in this place, because it's the nature of the energy that we're dealing with. And you can create these frequency states through collective action that we call ritual. So you can, like I say, you can get people together to generate high frequency. But what the demonic, satanic rituals are about is generating low frequencies. Because as I've been talking about for bloody hell decades now, there are entities in the hidden, which is basically everything is almost basically hidden from the human's ability to, you know, within their sight senses. It's so narrow what we can actually see, decode, that infinity lies beyond them, and that band of frequency, and so we can see virtually nothing. But just outside of our visual acuity, if you like, our frequency band of visual sight, are entities that feed off this low vibrational, emotional, and mental energy. So,
And hold on one second, David. Mark, you have been requested to co-host. I don't know if you could see that or not, but we are trying to add you as a co-host. So if you see that, accept it. I don't know what's going on. Twitter is very, very buggy today. So we're going to try to bring you up as a co-host. When you see that, just accept it. Should be any minute. All right, David. You know, one thing I wanted to get into from what you were talking about. Have you noticed Mark, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Finally, it looks like that's cleared up.
Yes, thank God. All right, so before we get back to David, Mark, I just wanted to thank you so much for coming today. I've been a big fan of your work for many, many, many years. And have you heard any of the conversation so far?
Yes, I've been listening.
All right, great.
Thank you very much for the invite. I appreciate that very much.
Yeah, and like I said, I really appreciate your work. A lot of people in the audience are big fans of your work, so you have a lot of impact out there. So for anyone that doesn't know Mark, number one, Mark, give yourself a little introduction for people who don't know who you are, and then you and David can start your conversation together.
Great. I'm Mark Passio from whatonearthishappening.com. I've been involved in the truth and freedom community as a researcher and presenter for the past 17 years. My main areas of focus are with the occult and all of its manipulations, and with helping people to understand objective morality and natural law, which is the solution to the occult manipulation that is taking place on our planet. And that's just a very brief introduction to my work. You could find all my work at whatonearthishappening.com.
Thank you so much, Mark. And what you said at the end was really, really key, and I'm sure we'll get into all that. So now I'm just going to give the stage to you and David to expand on your conversation together.
Sure.
All right, Mark. Hey, all right.
Yes, go right ahead, David.
Okay, I'll just finish this little bit I was saying at the start about how rituals can focus attention to generate energies that relate to that attention, that energy that they are seeking to create. And these entities are feeding off this energy. So first of all, the entities I'm talking about have no interest in a world of love and a world of joy and a world of happiness, in the sense that that's not the energy they primarily want. They want a world of fear, a world of anxiety, a world of depression, a world of all the low vibrational emotions and mental states that generate that energy. And so therefore you can expand on what is a ritual far, far wider than just people in a coven around an altar or whatever, because suddenly the whole of human society becomes a ritual to generate low vibrational emotional and mental states. And when you go into those low vibrational states, you are also withdrawing from the greater expansion of consciousness. You're basically going into a bubble, a low vibrational bubble. And that's where this force wants us to be. And you can look at a war. A war is a ritual. A world war is a global ritual where you're pitching people against each other to generate what? This very low vibrational state and energy. So if you look at a world war, you've got all that low vibrational mental and emotional energy with the people fighting it. You've got all the fears of their loved ones back home who are in fear of what will happen to them. And it's a massive global generation of this low vibrational energy. What is going on now in Gaza with the mass bombing is like a ritual. And it's interesting too that children are invariably involved in these rituals, and you've got a situation in Gaza which is massively impacting on children. So you are looking at a global society which is incredibly ritualistic. And if you take the definition of rituals, which is a repeating pattern of behavior, then look at human society. It's a constant repetition of the same behavior. And what we need to do, I'll finish with this and we'll bring Mark in. What we need to do is to break those patterns, to break those repeating patterns, those reflex action patterns of behavior, perception, thought, and emotion that have put us in what is basically this wheel going round and round and round, which is basically a perceptual trap. But we can break out of it, and it's time that we not only must break out of it, it's time that we have to break out of it because of where this is going.
David, excellently said. I couldn't agree with that analysis more about how these beings distort our energetic field and therefore our perception. And for those who don't know, I'm not going to go into a really long explanation of my background, but I was involved directly in the world of the dark occult in my youth. And as a result of that, I not only learned many things about their mindset, but I learned about their energy manipulation and how they do it. And for the past 17 years, I've been trying to give that playbook to the average human being freely and out of my own concern for where this is all leading, which is obviously to a world of slavery and ultimately destruction. And many people won't listen because of my background in the dark occult. I was a priest in the organization known as the Church of Satan, formerly run by its former high priest, Anton LaVey, who who actually appointed me as a priest in the Church of Satan. A lot of people don't really listen to what's said, and they hear things that they want to hear. I've never said that I was a high priest in any organization. They tack that word on because they think that's the rank. I was a simple priest, of which there are thousands in this organization worldwide, and never made it any further than that rank. There is a couple of ranks above that. There is Magister, which is sort of like a lieutenant of priests. And then there is Council of Nine, which is a ruling council of this occult body or organization. And then there's High Priest, which was Anton LaVey at the time. He was still alive when he appointed me to the rank of simple priest. When I realized that this was not about just hidden knowledge to get an advantage over your fellow man. In my egotistical state, when I was younger, I felt, the occult's going to teach me something that the average person doesn't know. That's going to give me a leg up in life, and I'm going to, have a tactical advantage over others. And that's why I went into the occult world. I didn't realize at the time, in my ignorance, when I was younger, that this was really about controlling everybody and creating a world based in masters and slaves. That's when I had an explosion of a crisis in conscience in my own mind and realized I don't want a world of slavery. I just wanted some knowledge that can give me a tactical advantage over others so I could be more prosperous than them in a selfish and egotistical state. When I realized it was ultimately about slavery, that's when I began blowing the whistle on what they really do, especially on how they distort human thought and how they control the mind by controlling people's perceptions and controlling information, the base level of what we need to gather and take in and eventually analyze and weed through and sort out in our own minds so that we can come to an accurate understanding of how things work in life. If you don't have that base level of knowledge, or what I call grammar, it's the grammar that makes up the words, that makes up the sentences, that makes up the thoughts and ideas. If you don't have the basic building blocks of information or grammar, everything that follows after that is going to be distorted. You're not going to have the information that you need to make informed decisions. And I want to bring the idea of ritual and energy transference to the fore here. And I'm going to hit people with concepts that they probably have not really thought of that much. And this is because they're not really thinking about it from the perspective of the Satanists of our world, the dark occultists, who are actually performing this type of energy manipulation. When I was involved in the Church of Satan, I was told and instructed and read about the three major kinds of rituals that they perform. In hindsight, I have realized later on that these are only it's one half, if you even want to look at it like that. It's like a 50% thing where they're telling even their own members, these are the only types of energy transference and ritualistic outpourings of energy that we perform. And that isn't really true, because there's a whole separate half or a whole separate section that constitutes a much more powerful form of ritual that they actually do. So I feel that this is really important to delineate between what I have come to understand as lesser magic and greater magic. Lesser magic is what they teach in the rank and file of the occult world, and especially within organizations that I was involved in, such as the Church of Satan. And I just want to make clear, the Church of Satan is not the top of this hierarchy. It is a small organization that interfaces with the public and is looking for psychopathic people that they can groom up into the higher levels of the satanic hierarchy worldwide. If anybody thinks that I am saying or have ever said the Church of Satan is the organization controlling the world, I would laugh at that statement. I would never make a statement like that, because while I know that there are influential people within it, within and power brokers within that organization, and who turn up at rituals that are, have a lot of members of the Church of Satan present, they are not the top of the pyramid by any stretch of the human imagination. So please don't confuse what I'm saying and think that I'm saying anything like that. Going back to ritual and energy transference, there's a lesser form of magic or ritual that Satanists and dark occultists in general perform. And they could be broken down into 3 subcategories. In the Church of Satan, they are taught to their adherents as compassion rituals, destruction rituals, and sex rituals, all dealing with different energy forms and energy transference. Compassion rituals are getting together and forming a common desire for a particular outcome in the world. That's the easiest way that I could describe it. It's a bunch of people who want to see the same thing happen in the world, all getting together and giving of their mental energy to have the actual outcome achieved. And they not only do that through their feelings, they do that through their actions. It's very action based. It's you come, you set the intention, then you go out into the world and you make it happen. So it's not just I think this and I feel this. It's I think it, I feel it, and I do it. All of the forms of consciousness, all of the aspects of consciousness in alignment. This is where the truth and freedom community struggle, because we're not on the same page. We're all over the place. And these people bring their thoughts, their emotions, and their actions into perfect alignment. And then they act in the very real world, and they get done what they say they're going to get done. That's compassion rituals. Destruction rituals are when there's a block to their end goal, energetically or physically in the world in some capacity. Perhaps a person or a group of people are trying to block what they want to do. And a destruction ritual is the sending of energy to remove that block in whatever way possible or whatever way is necessary. So that could be focusing on somebody who's in their way getting a brain aneurysm or developing fast spreading cancer. It's sending energy to somebody that's in their way, or sending energy to break up a block in a situation that is blocking them currently from achieving their goal. Then there are sex rituals, which is a bonding and cohesiveness in their own community, and also dark aspects of sex rituals, of course, with pedophilia and things like that, which creates deep energy distortions, especially in the young and the innocent. I never took part in any of those rituals. I was not privy to, present at, or took part in any sex rituals whatsoever. I was at a few compassion rituals. Really wasn't at a destruction ritual, heard it discussed a little bit, didn't take part in that either. Most of the rituals that I attended when I was involved in Satanism when I was younger were compassion rituals, meaning it's a focus of energy to create a situation that they want to see take place in the world. Now, all of those things that I just mentioned are lesser magic. It means you're dealing with things that you want to see happen in your own workings. It's something that, yes, deals with energy, but it is not the highest form of energy transfer or energy manipulation. Greater magic is that. It is the much higher aspect of energy transference, manipulation, and especially distortion. And what they're doing through greater magic is far more powerful than anything that their rank and file members do in the field of lesser magic, in the endeavors of lesser magic. And what greater magic in the dark occult, you could call this greater dark magic, if you will. I consider there is such a thing as greater positive magic or light magic, which is the influence of human thought for the betterment of all humanity and for alignment with the will of creation and with natural law. That's true greater magic. That's the one great work, as I call it. Their form of greater magic is to imprint and instill thought form distortion into the minds of the human population. This is the dark occult's greater magic. And they are are not successfully accomplishing it. They have successfully accomplished it. It is accomplished. Past tense. It has been accomplished for thousands of years. What our job as human beings is to recognize the exact forms of energy distortion that have taken place in the human mind, and then use our willpower and our knowledge and our real intentions to really truly better ourselves to amend and fix those thought form distortions that are going on in almost all of our minds, because that is the greatest genius of the world of the dark occult, is that they have given us a form of their mental energy. This is the greatest form of energy transference that there is, to give to the average person through different types of rituals their form of thought form distortion in a lesser sense. They're giving us a lower level vibrational aspect of their own minds. And in doing so, we believe what they want us to believe. Then we act how they want us to act. And then ultimately, we create what they want to have created in the world. We're the ones giving all of that energy to them. And I'll turn it over back to David there to let him comment on that or expand on it. And then I would like to later on go into the exact forms of thought distortion, and also the types of things that we would not perceive as ritual, which actually are ritual, which David already alluded to, things like war. I'm going to add a few more things to that list. So go right ahead, David.
Cheers, Mark. That was great, mate. Yeah, I mean, one of the key things you mentioned there was intention. I mean, for me, that's an incredibly powerful energy, intent. And if you can get collective intent focused on the same desired outcome, then you can create that that outcome. Also, the point about what I call compartmentalization, where you, even within the occult, it's very much compartmentalized. You look at a secret society and you've got the levels of degree. What those levels of degree are is levels of knowledge. And you only are invited into the next level of knowledge if you are considered worthy, i.e. safe, to have it. And the point that Mark was making towards the end is something I've been going on about for a long time, that we are creating the world that we, lots of us anyway, don't want, but we're actually creating it. And if you can, one of the things I'd like to introduce here is the word inevitable. If you can be convinced that something is inevitable, there's nothing you can do about it, then that state of mind, that state of emotion is going to, especially if it's collectively shared, it's going to create what you have been manipulated to believe is inevitable. So, you know, I look at Elon Musk and he's talking about, oh yeah, but AI taking over the world is inevitable. So trust me to do it better than the bad guys. But if we accept inevitability, that is a state of perception, of acceptance, that is going to create what we believe is inevitable. And the point that Mark was making about that the force behind all this, wanting to turn us, humans, human minds, into them, is absolutely spot on. That's what it's been about. It's about what I call assimilation. It's assimilating human consciousness into this manipulative force, so human consciousness becomes an expression and an expansion of that manipulative force. And if you take that and you apply it to current events technologically, you've got this electromagnetic cloud that's being added to by the week by satellites from SpaceX and Musk and others. And you've got the attempts, and through the COVID fake vaccine, not least, to put technology in the body, nanotechnology in the body, to connect us to that cloud, and to connect us to AI. And you know, the question I've always asked is, okay, what is AI then? I know you. Oh, okay, algorithmic AI. Okay, I get that. Then you've got another level of AI, which is well, I think they call it learning AI, or worse to that effect, where it's learning and becoming more and more aware of the nature of human by all the information that's being fed to it constantly. But there's another level of AI, which I would submit is actually this non-human force that's orchestrating all this. We're looking at a situation where the final connection to turn humans into, quote, them is this AI connection to the human brain, to the human mind. And so, as Mark was pointing out, if you don't know this background, and the whole idea is to stop us knowing, and most of the mainstream alternative media, as I call it, doesn't know this. If you don't know this background, then what's happening in the world, even technologically with the cloud and all the other stuff that's going on, the true relevance of it can't be grasped unless you have this background knowledge of what we call the dark occult.
You know, David and Mark, you guys really knocked the cover off the ball with the way you were describing the way these tactics work. And, you know, I think what the most important thing that the audience should take from this is that you are being manipulated every day through the internet, through your TV, through your radio, social media, whatever the case is, whatever mode, whatever delivery channel of communication is designed to make you think a certain way. And when you do that, you are actually working against yourself if you don't realize it. And another thing, before we go back to Mark and Reptile, welcome up. I just saw you there, so welcome up. We'll get to you in a minute. Is in regards to that whole, like, the idea of manifestation. I've been really vocal lately about not, like, falling for all this fear porn that we constantly see on social media. I all feel, and maybe Mark, you could elaborate on this, I feel like that is part of the ritual, and they are using us to create these outcomes by constantly bombarding us with the impulses to make us feel a certain way. And so I've been really vocal. Like, you see what they're doing with this eclipse over the last few weeks. They're making the biggest deal. I understand this is a very high energetic event, and there's no question about that. But what they've been doing with this over the last few weeks has been something I've never seen in my life. And I've seen a few eclipses at this point, and it's really crazy. So they're really trying to manipulate the public for this to have some type of negative outcome, negative energy output. And I guess I'll get back to you, Mark, on that, and whatever else you want to speak about, Mark.
Absolutely. And the name of the game is to inject fear into everybody's mind. Fear is the destroyer of consciousness. If you are in fear, you are not truly conscious. You are running a program in the mind. And this is what they want. They can control a program running in the mind. They can't control true consciousness. True consciousness is not based in fear. It's based in love and awareness. It's based in the expansion of knowledge. If you know, you don't fear. You fear when you're ignorant. You fear when you don't have knowledge. And most people, unfortunately, don't have knowledge. You know, in the 17 years I've been doing this, the people who actually receive the information and go on a quest for it themselves to confirm it are the people who don't make the claim, I know everything I need to know. So their mind is a little bit more open, and they can take information and then they can process it and they can come to an accurate understanding of it. The people who have the most difficult time with all of the knowledge that I've put out over the years are the people who think they already know what they need to know. They're very left-brained. They're very stuck and rooted in their ways, and that's a program that's running in the mind. And they're even expressing fear as a result of that, because they fear what they might learn. They fear that they don't already know everything that they need to know, and that's why they don't want to look at it, because higher level knowledge carries with it higher level responsibility. And most people don't want responsibility. They want to be taken care of. They want to be lied to. They want to be kept comfortable. As long as they can pass the buck on to somebody else and not take real responsibility, then so be it. That's what most people want, is just comfort. And all of that is fear-based consciousness, all of it. And what I would like to do is go a little bit deeper into what I would consider their form of greater magic, meaning the dark occult world, the people who are really truly the social engineers manipulating the consciousness of the ignorant of this world, which is the vast majority of the human population. And it is about getting numbers of people to subscribe to their worldview. And here's the main things that they distort in the human mind. If we don't understand the strategy of the enemy, you're failing in one of the main things that you have to succeed at to win a spiritual battle. And this was described by Sun Tzu in The Art of War, which is a philosophy about winning any type of conflict. Meaning, if you're up against an enemy that's out to do you harm, there's two things you ultimately need. You need knowledge of the enemy, and you need true knowledge of yourself. And the human population does not have either one, which means they will lose every time. If you have 50% of that incredibly important knowledge, meaning you might know yourself but not the enemy, or you might know the enemy but not the self, it's going to be random, chaotic results. You might win a few, you're going to lose half, and you're never going to understand why you won or lost. It's going to seem completely random and chaotic, your results. If you know both yourself and your enemy, truly, I mean at a very deep fundamental level, there's no battle that you can't come out successful in. And that's why we're losing. Humanity is not winning this battle. I take exception to people who say we're winning, we're waking up, etc. We're not waking up to the most important things that have to be woken up to. They go far deeper than politics, finance, even environmental issues or technology. These are ancillary things that are not the important things to understand. The important things to understand is what's going on in the human psychology, what's going on deep in the human psyche. And here's the poisoning methods that the dark occult use through their greater magic. And as I said, this is thought form distortion. If you understand that everything is energy, everything is energy. There's nothing that is not energy. Everything in creation is energy. So then thought in and of itself is an energy form, or it's a vibratory form of energy. Thought form energy is what they are poisoning and distorting to then get the outcome that they want to achieve. This is what a social engineer does. This is what a master manipulator does. We have to stop seeing Satanism and dark occultism as robed figures out in a clearing in the forest with a bonfire, sacrificing animals. This is a child's representation of the occult and Satanism. These people are the managers of Fortune 500 companies. They're CEOs. They're the people who are in boardrooms making all the important decisions of factors that affect all of our lives. That's who these Satanists and dark occultists are. They are absolutely the complete directors and manipulators of the human mind, because we don't have any psychic defenses up against their poisoning influences. So here's the 5 major ways that they create their greater dark magic. The thought form distortion that they instill in the human population, and the population never even sees it They never discuss it. These are things you're never going to hear the population talking about. The average member of the population is not going to discuss this. They're going to be discussing the sports scores or whoever's running for office this week. Okay. They're not going to be talking about the deepest manipulations of the psyche. We have to stop thinking about the occultists as people who worship some Christian derived deity and start thinking of them as the most powerful psychological manipulators who have ever lived. These are master psychologists. They're chess masters at manipulating human psychology. That's what the occult is. And people don't understand that because they buy into the religious interpretations. They buy into Hollywoodized versions of what Satanism and dark occultism are. They are not any of those things. Stop believing Hollywood. Stop believing your priest or pastor telling you what they think Satanism is. If you want to really know what Satanism is, you should take the word of someone who was an actual clergy member in Satanism. And I defected bringing the playbook of these people to the average person. And unfortunately, most still don't want to hear it. Here's the 5 thought form distortions. I'll go through them quickly. They distort human ontology. Now, ontology means your way of viewing and studying the nature of reality. And I know this is one of David's fortes. This is one of the biggest things that David talks about in all of his work is the nature of our reality. Our reality is based upon energy and consciousness. And if we are very highly conscious, then, and not in a fear state of vibration and consciousness, we are going to prosper. If we give in to their worldview about what we think reality is and how it functions, we're going to immediately be disempowered. And the number one way that they disempower people is by Satanists have laws for them, but not for everybody else, and laws for everybody else, but not for them. Especially when it comes to what they call satanic sins. There's actually such a thing as satanic sins. The number one, what they want to do with satanic sins is they want to make everybody else engage in them, except for them. Except for the dark occultists, they are forbidden to engage in these quote unquote sins in their interpretation. These are things that the Satanists should never engage in, but we should get the public to completely be drowning in. I'm going to talk about only the number 1 and 2 because the second one has to do with ontological poisoning. The number 1 satanic sin is stupidity. This means that any Satanist or dark occultist should have all the knowledge that they need at all times and always be trying to take in more knowledge to learn and increase their awareness of how things work. But always upon the public, ignorance should be pushed and pressed so that we end up with a completely stupid population of slaves that are easy to manipulate and easy to control. That's the number 1 satanic sin. Again, it's what they want to push on the public, but they want to avoid for themselves. The number 2 satanic sin, or it might be number 3, I believe, is solipsism. Solipsism means that the person who subscribes to this poisoned ideology believes there's no such thing as truth. And as David said, if you go into something believing something is impossible, your perception of what's possible being poisoned, you're going to be completely disadvantaged and disempowered from the very beginning, before the battle even begins. So solipsism means you don't think there's any such thing as knowledge, that it's all just a matter of opinion and perception, and there's no such thing as objective truth. From that stems moral relativism, the idea that if there's no such thing as objective truth, there can't be any such thing as objective morality. And if you don't understand that there's objective morality, you're going down the extremely steep, slippery slope into human slavery, because all freedom is based upon morality and all slavery is based upon ignorance of morality and not aligning oneself to morality. And I mean true morality, not religious morality. The second way that they poison people is epistemological poisoning. And this is, how do we learn truth? Is there a methodology for the discovery of truth? So this is the idea that you have to understand learning the truth is possible about how reality works and functions, what real morality is. This is discoverable. If your worldview is the truth isn't discoverable. It's hidden from us for all eternity, and we're tormented with never being able to know. That's epistemological poisoning, okay? Learning is possible, but it's not guaranteed. If you don't know the methodology for true learning, knowledge is not ever guaranteed to come to you. You're not guaranteed to just automatically know something. You have to know the methodology for learning, which is the trivium process. So epistemological poisoning, people believe there's no way that anybody can really know that. You know, there's no method for that. What's the actual method for knowing anything? And that's because people have been kept ignorant of the trivium process, which has been removed from all educational methods and schools. And that's part of the ritual. Take away the methodology for learning, and you'll end up with a completely ignorant, foolish population. The third method of poisoning is psychological poisoning. And the form of psychological warfare is, I'm going to allude to, is directly connected with what I just talked about Sun Tzu's philosophy of the art of war. Know the self and know the enemy. These two things are the two most difficult things that I've ever had to do in my entire career as a public speaker, presenter, and researcher. And they're still the things that the public is the most resistant to learning. They're still the things the public is the most ignorant of. The enemy and the self. And in these two ways, they're ignorant of the enemy of the self. They don't know what Satanism really is. They have a distorted view of Satanism given to them by religion and given to them by Hollywood. And they won't even listen to a former clergy member of the satanic religion. I was given an appointment to clergy in this religion because of how well I know and expressed it in the past and embodied it in the past. I've since, of course, rejected it because I realize it is the philosophy. It's the ideology. We should not call it a philosophy. It's the ideology that leads to human slavery. It leads to a world of nothing but masters and slaves. And I don't want to see that world. That's why my conscience would not allow me to proceed on that path. So the two ways that they poison people's psychology is they get them to believe the enemy is something other than what it is. And the enemy is truly ignorance, but the conductors of that ignorance, the ones who are bringing that to the fore in all of humanity, is the dark occult. Satanism. And you have to see them as master psychologists. But moreover than that, you have to understand they're inculcating the public into their religious belief system. Most people in the world are Satanists, and they're not Satanists by joining an organization. They are de facto Satanists. They are Satanists in their thoughts, in their heart, and in their deeds. In every way that matters, they do the bidding of Satanism. So you could call them de facto Satanists. De facto is a Latin term that means in deeds. In your actions, you are satanic. And if to be satanic in action, you must prior be satanic in thought. You have to embody a satanic worldview. And that doesn't mean worshiping of any entity. It means the ego is seen as the highest form of existence. The ego has complete control. Moral relativism reigns in the mind. You don't believe there's any such thing as right or wrong, truly and objectively. And then you believe, well, we should have control. We should have a hierarchical structure of control called government. You believe in authority. That's part of social Darwinism, trying to act like some type of animal collective that creates a hierarchy based on pecking order. That's animalistic and satanic behavior. That's not human thought. That's not higher human thought. And then eventually that leads to the desire to control and kill, which leads to eugenics. These are the tenets or pillars of Satanism, and the population doesn't know that. The other thing that's been the most difficult for me to teach is what is human nature. And this is also poisoned by the Satanists through their religious institutions. And yes, they control all the religious institutions, not just some. And no, your religious institution that you believe in is not free of that poisoning and control. They control that one too. Yes, they do. And they're poisoning people's viewpoint of what human nature is. You ask people, what is human nature? They'll never tell you the correct answer. And there's a one-word correct answer to what human nature is. And this is one of the highest secrets of the occult world that I'm going to break out to you here today. One of the highest secrets that they don't want anybody to know is what human nature is. Human nature is not good. Human nature is not evil. Human nature is not angelic. Human nature is not demonic. Human nature is not that we're lazy or ignorant or smart or intelligent or any of those things. Human nature is programmability. We are a programmable species by nature, meaning the results that we are going to get are going to be based on action that we take in the world. Action that we take in the world, in turn, is going to be based on our thought processes. Our thought processes are based on information that is programmed into us. If it is good information, we will have good thought process, we will understand reality, and then we will act properly in the world with true morality and have accurate, good results. We will have prosperity, freedom, order, etc. If we have bad distortions in thought, in information, we don't have all the information we need, and we have misinformation and bad information, distortion in information, then we're going to have distortion in the mind and distortion in our thought processes. This is going to lead to distortion in our behavior, and we're going to act immorally. And then we get the result of chaos, slavery, disorder, destruction, etc. This isn't rocket science, folks. This is the way reality works that has been hidden and shielded from us since time immemorial. The other two ways, very quickly, they hide and confuse natural law, which is the ultimate key to human freedom, which is knowing the objective difference between right and wrong behavior that truly exists in nature. That distinction is not man-made. It is not subjective. It is an objective distinction that exists inherently in nature. A right is an action that does not initiate harm to another sentient being. All wrongs are actions that initiate harm to other sentient beings. Once again, not rocket science. Pretty simple, should be self-evident, unfortunately is not, because of the distortion in thought that the Satanists have instilled in almost all of humanity. So if we don't understand natural law, we can never truly be free, because freedom is based on morality. As aggregate morality increases, aggregate freedom increases. As aggregate morality declines, aggregate freedom declines. The last thing that they distort is our personal responsibility to act for ourselves and others. They poison us with this savior psyop, this notion of you don't have to do it yourself. It's not for you to do. That's for someone more important than you to do. That's for someone who's somehow better than you to do. It's not for you to solve. That's for a savior to solve. And just keep waiting for the savior to come along. It'll be any moment now. And in reality, that moment is exactly never. There is no such thing as a savior of humanity. Each individual has to unpollute and unpoison their own thought form energy distortions so that they can act in the aggregate, coming all together and helping to save humanity from slavery. Does humanity need to be saved? Yes, it does. It doesn't need to be saved from any dark deity out there in some other dimension. It needs to be saved from the current condition of human slavery. And with that, and explaining those distortions that the dark occult put out through their rituals of greater dark magic, I'll turn it back over to David.
Hi, I can put my microphone on. Yeah, I agree with all of that. And I've made a few notes and just a few comments to make on that. I've been talking for, well, goodness knows how long, about something I call phantom self. This is the perception of self that humanity is constantly told to have in ways that Mark was talking about. Phantom self, ego, call it what you like. It's the misunderstanding of the true I, which is consciousness, and the belief that the true I is the human experience that we're having, and to self-identify with the labels of a human life instead of realizing that they're just experiences and we are the consciousness having those experiences. So immediately, if you fall into phantom self and you self-identify only with the labels of a human life, you are immediately in the realm of this control, but you're also in the realm of limitation. Because from that perspective, it seems like I'm just little me. What power do I have? Because you don't realize you are, in the end, ultimate power, if you want to open yourself to it, called. And this point that Mark was making, God, how many times I've made this over the years. People fear the unknown. And so they withdraw into their own little sense of certainty. And their mind closes with that, because when you open your mind and you allow yourself to explore greater and greater swathes of infinity, there is no certainty, because things are changing all the time. Your perceptions are changing all the time. There's not a rock that you can hold on to and say, I've got it. And that's the biggest problem of all, and Mark alluded to it, is this idea of I've got it. I know all I need to know. It's like Socrates is supposed to have said, wisdom is knowing how little we know. Once you realize how little we know, your mind is constantly open to what you don't know. And he also mentions the left side of the brain. And there's a psychologist in Scotland called Ian McGilchrist, who's written a book about the functions of the left and right hemispheres of the brain. It's fascinating. And one of the points he makes is that the left side of the brain demands certainty. It wants certainty. And for me, that demand for certainty is all coming out of this base state of fear. Fear wants certainty. You know, I've known people who are frightened of life, and they want next Tuesday to be the same as this Tuesday. They don't want any surprises because they can't cope with that. They want certainty. And the left side of the brain is that part which perceives reality as basically everything separate from everything else. It doesn't see wholes, it sees parts. And if you can be put in that cul-de-sac of the left side of the brain, then you're never going to grasp how it's all connected, because you can only see the parts. And when I look at this left brain desperation for certainty, I see it everywhere. It's the certainty of religion. All this stuff is happening, and I'm frightened of the unknown, and I don't know what's coming next, but I have the certainty of my religious belief. And so much of what we call religion, their advocates have this desperation for a certainty they can hang on to. I see it with mainstream science and those that follow science. The science can't be wrong. Oh, really? Stick with me. So it's science is their certainty, and what you get is, if you question or ask questions about someone's religious belief, or you ask questions about someone's certainty in science and the scientific orthodoxy, you get basically the same reaction from both, because they're both basically a religion. what you're doing, and this is why they so often respond against you so vehemently, is because you're pricking their sense of certainty, and that's what they're holding on to. And if we can reevaluate our self-identity from the labels of a human life to the consciousness that we are, then first of all, when you self-identify with being consciousness, you automatically start expanding your awareness, because your self-identity becomes your reality. In the same way that if you are focusing your attention on the I being the body, the color of the body, the income of the body, the race of the body, the religion of the body, you are moving into limitation, because you are moving into a myopia of self-identity. And that's where these black magicians want us, because we're done then. And one of the things that Mark also mentioned was this idea of we're not winning. And I have noticed too, more and more people in what I call the mainstream alternative media saying we're winning. Well, when this agenda of human dystopia stops playing out while people are shouting we're winning, then I'll accept we're winning, but it's still playing out. And so much of what I call the mainstream alternative media, the MAM, which gets all the attention and basically the promotion, it's not grasped what it's dealing with. It's not, as Mark put it, it doesn't know the enemy that it's dealing with. And therefore, it looks for saviors, because it doesn't understand that if you want a savior, then find yourself a frickin' mirror. So Trump's the savior. So, oh my God, can you believe they would fall for this? Musk is the savior. And what that's doing all the time is externalizing our power. It's giving our power away. It's saying, you do it. I don't have the power to do it, so you do it for me. And as the famous Freemason Albert Pike once said, the American Freemason from the 1800s, when the people want a hero, we'll provide one. And that's what they're doing all the time, giving us saviors. And it's this is my view, and people take of it as they will, but I do not believe for a moment that you can uncover the true nature of what is happening in the world and understand it if you are following a religious belief. Not only a religious belief, if you're following any belief that is not open to being challenged, to being questioned. Because what happens is you believe something to the point where you will not go into areas where that belief could come under challenge. So you just don't go there. So there's these no-go areas. It doesn't matter if it's you believe in Christianity, you believe in Islam, you believe in Hinduism, whatever, Judaism. These are all creating, if they are unyielding beliefs, no-go areas where you won't go. And it's in those no-go areas that so much of the truth that we need to understand lies. And we've had an example in the recent few weeks or couple of weeks, which has really kind of struck me. It's when what is happening in Israel has been rightly challenged. And one of the comebacks has been to suggest that saying Jesus is king is anti-Semitic and all that, and that's created, another row, another conflict. And so all I was seeing for a few days was people posting Jesus is king. First of all, I would like to know what that means, but I was struck by a particular picture that was posted with one of these postings, and it was Jesus on a throne, which was on top of steps going up to the throne, and all around were people on their knees bowing their heads. Jesus is king, and the words said something like, one day everyone will bend the knee and accept Jesus as their Lord, or words to that effect. Now, consciousness, that is an expression of all consciousness, should not be bowing its knee to anyone or anything. It's getting us into that mode of reaction and perception that is behind the slavery that we say we want to get out of. We must stop bending our knees to anybody. We must look life in the eye. We must look infinity in the eye, because only then will we be able to express the true potential of our own power of creativity to get out of this situation that we're in. And so what you've got, and I'll finish with this, but what you've got, I mean, Mark's been indicating it as well. You've got all these reasons to give your power away and all these reasons to bend your knee. So if you look at, we supposedly have 8 billion people in the world. Do you know 5.4 billion of the 8 billion are either followers of Christianity, followers of Islam, or followers of Hinduism? That's without all the other religions around the world. And so the vast majority of humans, have a belief system that is unyielding, and that's a prison cell. What it's saying is, I know what I need to know. And then the prison cell door flies shut, and we sit there through a human life thinking we know what we know, and then we realize we don't when it's too late. We've really got to, I would say, get a blank sheet of paper and allow onto it that which makes sense in and of itself, not allowing on it stuff just because that's all we've ever heard. You know, if you look at a person born in a Hindu family, or born into a Islamic family, or a Jewish family, or a family in the southern states of the United States, invariably the children will become what the parents were and are. So obviously they're not reaching their own conclusions. They're not working it out for themselves. They're taking an off the peg designer belief system just because that's all they've ever heard. And fear massively goes into that. If you don't believe this, this is what's going to happen to you. So it really is a time for clearing the mind and looking at the world afresh, because not doing that ain't got us very far, is it?
David, you hit the nail on the head there. And, I've recently been very vocal about this subject, and I say the truth starts, not the truth, but the truth starts, in my opinion, and I take a lot of heat for this, beyond when you start looking beyond religion. And I think you really hit the nail on the head there. Mark, I just want to say you've really been amazing. We really appreciate the information you have been sharing. I want to give Reptile, he's had his hand up for about 45 minutes, Reptile Hybrid. I want to give you a chance to ask a question. The floor is yours, my friend.
Thanks, Michael, and thanks, Bartcoin. Wow, what an important space. Like David said, to think it's actually a science. Whoever this whatever they're doing, they understand exactly what they're doing. I wanted to ask David and Mark the significance of astrology. Lots of people are talking about the solar eclipse. Why are they doing these rituals on certain dates? And, when you look at our religions as well, David, all on certain dates, why is it, how does astrology link into this? And even geographical sites as well, David, do you mind talking about that?
Hey, David, are you with us? I think David, I think you cut off. We cannot hear you. Can you guys raise your hand if you can hear David?
Yeah. When
there you are.
When you introduced the last guest, it went quiet until
All right, so I will give him another chance to ask this question. Reptile, your floor is yours, my friend.
Just wanted to say, I wanted to ask you, David, with all the talk about the solar eclipse, I wanted to ask you the significance of astrology, why they do things on certain dates.
Gone quiet again.
Has it? He might not be able to hear me. How about I drop down and come back, Michael?
Okay. Hold there. So you're saying David should drop out and come back?
I could speak to that question,
okay,
if that is okay.
Yes, Mark, go ahead.
Yes. So it is part of the dark occult belief systems that astronomical bodies of the heavens have influence upon human thought form and events. And, I do not knock that belief system as something that could have subtle energy effects, or even stronger effects at certain times and certain alignments. But I do not let it guide what I want to do and accomplish. You have to look at it like this. I look at these subtler forms of energy presences, which astrology deals with, as look at it like a tide, right, on the ocean. It would be easier to take a boat out at low tide when you don't have a lot of incoming waves, and it might be more challenging to do at high tide, but you can still do it. It's a matter of your willpower. It's a matter of how much are you going to set the idea into your mind that I will accomplish this. See, I could look at it like this. I could do the work that I'm doing, and if I encounter a technological problem like I did earlier, I could get flustered about it and say, that's energy working against me. Maybe it's sabotage, and I could give up. See, this is part of what I teach in all of my work, that we have to have extreme resilience and a never say die attitude. If we give up easily and we put things down, we say we want to accomplish something, and then hardship comes along and we say, well, that's too difficult, and I'm just going to put it down and forget about that. Do you know how many people I've seen come and go in the so-called truth and freedom movements? You know how many people I've seen come and say, I tried to teach people what's going on. They don't want to hear it. So I'm just dropping everything, and I'm not going to be involved in this anymore. And I'm going to move out into the wilderness somewhere. I'm going to go get a house. I'm going to go get a cabin in the middle of the woods, somewhere in the middle of the state in Pennsylvania. And I'm going to live there, and I'm done with people. Do you think the problem of human slavery is going to be solved like that? See, this is what I think people do when it comes to subtle energies that they build up in their mind that are super major energies that are somehow going to prevent us from doing what we need to do. We can't subscribe to their viewpoint of, it's a very reptilian and ritualistic viewpoint of, I'm going to do this on this day and it has to be that way, and I need that certainty because I know this energy is present from the heavens. Like, I don't subscribe to astrology in that way. In all honesty, I would say my will is stronger than all of that. When you're dealing with a will like mine, you're dealing with something that's far more powerful than any astronomical alignments of heavenly bodies. And if everybody had that kind of will, this problem would be solved today. It would be solved like in a few seconds if everybody had that kind of willpower. The problem is they don't, and they're led very easily into a belief system of disempowerment. This is what all forms of religion do. And again, don't take this as I'm completely knocking astrology. I see it as a legitimate occult science in some ways, but not in the ways where people are going to say, well, I'm not even going to bother to travel someplace, or I'm not going to bother to do this endeavor during this time period. Like the idea, like I'm putting off my plans on what I want to accomplish and the work that I want to get done during Mercury retrograde. Let's be realistic. This is a nonsensical way of viewing astrology. In my view, I don't let that take that much power over me as a form of religion, which is what a lot of people do with it. It's a subtle influence that can be studied, and you can tactically understand good times and places to do things. I don't knock it from that point of view, but I don't give it the kind of power over me that I'm going to completely rearrange my will and my plans and the agenda that I want to put into place and things that I want to get done just because there's some alignment taking place. As far as the eclipse coming, solar eclipses happen almost every single year, at least once a year, sometimes twice a year. They happen in all different parts of the world. This is something that is a natural phenomenon, and all the fear about it is just that. It's hype-based fear, because that's all that the dark occult ever want to inject. They want to inject fear. Let me tell you what I consider actual rituals, okay? Here's the forms of rituals and the forms of dark occult influence that we should really be concerned about, as opposed to people think rituals take place on certain dates. And yeah, there can be like mega rituals and real mass events that they want to bring out into the public consciousness that can take place on certain events and times. In all honesty, we shouldn't be as concerned with those as we are with what I call continuous rituals. As David said, when you understand Satanism, you understand our entire society is satanic. I did a series on my podcast a couple of years ago called Our Entire Society is One Big Satanic Ritual. Focus more on the continuous rituals, and you'll see them as rituals. You won't see them just as the way things are, because they're not the way things are. They're not the way things are supposed to be. They're completely out of alignment with nature. They're completely out of alignment with health. They're completely out of alignment with true prosperity, or just general, alignment with true principles and nature, which is what we should strive to be. That's the form of homeostasis that we should strive to be in as beings if we're ever going to make any progress as a species. Focus more on these rituals. Let me give you the continuous rituals that we should really try to understand as rituals and as constant negative energy outpour to poison the field of consciousness on this planet. How about lying media speaking continuously to the human mind every second of every day on every major television network, in every major newspaper, in every major magazine? Why don't we see that as a ritual? Because that is an energetic ritual that's far more dangerous than any false flag event that could ever take place. You're poisoning the minds of the average person, man, woman, child, etc., in every culture, in every nation. That's a continuous ritual that never ends. Ask yourself, how much of the time of your life, if you just take one person, single out one human being, and say, how much time out of the total time of this being's life have they been bombarded with lies instead of told the truth by any living being? And give me the ratio. Tell me the ratio of lies to truth that a person has been bombarded with during the course of their natural life. And if you're not honestly telling me it's over 10,000 or possibly even far greater than 10,000 to 1, you're lying. You're lying to yourself and you're lying to everybody else. That's a ritual. This is what we have to start understanding. That's how they operate. Forget the big things that they trot out from time to time on a certain date, or in a certain place. They're almost inconsequential to the continuous rituals. Here's another continuous ritual. How about compulsory schooling for the young? That's not a continuous ritual that never ends, that goes on continuously, nonstop, poisoning the minds of the children, indoctrinating them into the whole worldview of the state, which is a subcategory of Satanism. All government is Satanism because it's all moral relativism, because it's all based in the whims of man, what is right and wrong. See, right and wrong are not decided or determined by man, by humanity. Right and wrong need to be discovered as things that exist inherently in nature by humanity, and then willfully align our behavior to the right instead of the wrong. And we're miserable failures as a species at that. Absolute, abject, miserable failures at it. That's why we're enslaved. That's why we're not going anywhere. We're going deeper into bondage and enslavement because we won't align with true right. So schooling is a continuous ritual. How about cultural religion? All of the churches, synagogues, mosques, everywhere in the world, poisoning people into giving up their power, as David just talked about so eloquently. I just want to say, I do hope David resolves his audio issue, because I just want to say to David, what you are saying in this space is so brilliant. It's just an honor to share the space with you because you're so on point, David. The world needs more brave speakers like yourself. This is what I try to encourage people to do, not to only know it themselves. See, you can't, this isn't about just you knowing something and finding out as an intellectual curiosity. That's not good enough, and that's not going to get the job done. It's not good enough that you know it. You have to teach others. You have to spread the information. You have to become a vehicle for the truth. If you're not doing that, you're not part of the solution. You're still part of the problem. And most people haven't activated in that sense. I don't know what they're waiting for. They're just waiting and waiting and waiting. Like somebody's going to come along and say, tap you on the shoulder and say, okay, it's your turn now. There's no such thing. Don't wait for orders from headquarters. Just go and do it. Here's another continuous ritual. How about the monetary system of the world? That's not a continuous mind poisoning ritual, getting everybody to focus their mental energy on things that are not even real, like the fiat currency system. How many people, that's all they ever worry about in their lives from the time they wake up till the time they go to sleep, never giving their energy to anything else. That's a continuous ritual. How about what the medical system does to people's health? How about that one? That's not a continuous ritual. The food and medical system in conjunction with each other, poisoning people and then giving them more poison in the form of quote unquote medicine. That's a continuous ritual. How about this one that's probably going to lose most of the listening audience here? Okay. What about animal farming? How about animal slaughter and farming as a continuous ritual to put polluted and negative and completely satanic energy all over the world? Animals are being slaughtered and murdered every second of every day on this planet, non-stop. We kill over 12 billion land animals alone every year for what we laughingly call food. And this has never meant to be human food. The earth grows all the food we could ever possibly need, and then 100 times more in such abundance that it's almost unfathomable. And we think we need continuous slaughter of animal life that isn't ours to take. That's theft. That's immorality and theft, taking life. And that's part of the ongoing satanic rituals. The ongoing rituals poison the field of energy all around us and poison our own minds and bodies far more than any false flag rituals or events that are done according to astrological alignments. That's what people need to understand dark occultism is and does. It's so in our face. It's so out in the open. It's so hidden in plain sight. We can't even see it. That's why it's the occult. It's difficult to see for the average person, hidden from sight, hidden from our view, hidden from our consciousness. I'll turn it back over to David if he has his audio issues corrected, hopefully.
Yeah.
Can you hear us, David? All right, cool.
Hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, David, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can
All
you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Oh, bro. Yeah. It's very interesting when you see the everyday things of life in the form that they really are. And if you look at the lying media and compulsory schooling, then you have two sources of that which controls human perception, which is information. I have this phrase, what you believe, you perceive, and what you perceive, you will experience. Your perception becomes your reality, and collective perception becomes collective reality. That's why they want control of our individual and collective perception of self and the world, because then they know that we'll create it in the image that they want. So if you look at the mainstream media, it is giving us the version of the world that these occultists want us to have. And even now, after all the lies that have been so obvious, people still in great numbers look to the mainstream media as their source of finding out what's happening in the world. But the big one there that Mark mentions, and my God, I've been going on this for so long. In fact, when I went to school, I didn't want to know about what they were telling me. What would happen is at the start of every year, when you started a new year, you would line up outside a classroom for maths or whatever subject it was. And where you sat that first lesson is where you sat the whole year. So at every lesson on the first of the year, first day of the year, new year, I would make sure I was in the first, if not the first, in the first handful of people at the front of the queue, because I was heading for the seat, because of the nature of the school I went to, which looked out of the window onto the games field. And I spent most of my school life looking out at the games field and didn't really pay much attention to any of it, because somehow, instinctively, I thought this stuff is not for me. I left school at 15 to play football and never took a major exam in my life except an end of year class exam. And when I look back at that, I say, thank you, God, because if you break down the school system, it is a programming of perception system from the earliest age. Gotcha. Then start looking at some of the characters that were behind the creation of compulsory schooling, not least the Rockefeller family in terms of America. Of course, Gates is very much involved in the manipulation of the school system and the curriculum in the United States. So you come out of the womb, your life is a ritual. You come out of the womb and you're met with parents. Parents have been through the system that you are about to go through and have bought it, overwhelmingly, not all. And they then pass on to you what they think is reality, but it's only what they've downloaded from the system. 3 or 4 years now, after you arrive here, you're in a classroom and it starts. From then until your teenage years, at least 5 days a week, plus homework. Don't give them time to let their imaginations flow. Keep control at all times. And now the smartphones fill in the time in between anyway. And it starts. And you are given the state's version of everything, day after day after day after day. And there is a carrot and stick system in place from your first day at school, which is if you play the game and you conform, then you're basically left alone. But if you don't, there's trouble. From the very first day at school, authority is telling you when you must be there, when you can leave, when you can talk, when you can eat, when you can go to the toilet. And you're not only getting this programming of perception of the world, you're getting programmed into subordination to authority. And so it goes on all the way through your teenage years. And then you go out into the world and your teacher becomes your boss, who's now dictating when you have to be there, when you can leave, and all the rest of it. And all the people around you who've been through the same programming system are confirming to you that what you believe as a result of that is how things are. And anyone that challenges that steps off the postage stamp consensus, as I call it, they are given a hard time through ridicule or abuse. And so a lot of them come back into line. And you go, if you analyze a human life from womb to tomb, it is a constant programming of the state, i.e. the occult's version of reality. And it shows the power of consciousness when you can tap into it, when you choose to make that decision, that you can, despite this cradle to grave programming, this peer pressure to accept the programming, that you can break out of its control of you. And you can see a different world that most other people are not seeing because the program's got them. And so when you look at these control systems of information, that's what censorship, of course, is all about. You know, it's about censoring that which challenges the official narrative, so the official narrative goes on being unchallenged. And so this is why, instead of I know it's challenging sometimes, and it takes what people call courage, but this is why we have to speak our truth, whatever our truth is, and not be kowtowed and intimidated into silence. The worst censorship is censorship. That's what the political correctness and all this stuff is about. Self-censoring ourselves. So what our view, which may challenge the narrative, is never heard. We must be heard. And you know, the point that Mark made earlier, my goodness me, have I seen it too. I've been doing this now for, I'm in the 35th year of it. And the people I've seen come and be flavor of the month for a while and then go. And I look at them and I think, how can you see at least some of what's going on and then walk away from it? You know, once you grasp anything like enough of what's happening, and we're all, people say I'm awake, and this person's awake, and that none of us are awake. We're awakening. It's a process of opening our minds to more and more understanding. But how you can see something of what's happening and then just walk away from it and say, oh, it's too hot in the kitchen, or they're not listening to me. Well, try harder then. This is life we're talking about. Once you have the gift, and it is a gift of seeing through the crap, the responsibility is you have to share that with other people, because people say knowledge is power. No, it's not. The use of knowledge is power. Knowledge without using it, you might as well not have it. And so it really is a time that we've got to stiffen the backbone and say, I'm going to speak my truth. And if people don't like it, well, they can do the other thing. I've been doing this for 35 years. I've had untold ridicule, untold abuse, but I'm still here doing it. It is possible. It depends, as Mark indicated, it depends how determined you are, how badly you want it. Do you want it a little bit badly? Oh, no, that's enough. I'm off. Or do you want it totally, which means that you're never off. You're always on the case.
Very well said, David. I want to thank you once again for all the work you have done over the years. So it is now 1:40. I'm going to give both Mark and David a closing statement, and we're going to cut it a little short today because I am not in my usual residence. So, Mark, I really want to thank you for coming on today. You are fantastic, and we would love to have you again. Feel free to come on here anytime. And if you guys enjoy these spaces, just remember this is all possible through the Bartcoin. Please follow our main account. We have a lot of really interesting things going on. Our full-fledged licensed casino will be released this week. It's already out. It's just being tested beta to make sure there's no little kinks we have to work out. But that will be up and running this week. We have gamification of our NFTs coming up. So we are a fully revenue-producing meme coin, and we will also be bringing you these spaces for the foreseeable future. So once again, David, Mark, you guys have been excellent today. And I will bring it over to Mark for your closing statement, and then we'll get to David, and then we'll close us out.
Thank you so much. I want to say it's been an honor sharing this stage with David, and thank you so much for inviting us. What I want to say to close out is what we really require in the world is far, far more spiritual warriors. And as David so astutely and correctly pointed out, knowledge in and of itself is not power. It is a mechanism that can eventually be converted into power. And it has to go through 2 stages before it becomes real power. This is the trivium process. In the ancient world and in the occult mystery schools and mystery traditions of the ancient world, they did not view the trivium as grammar, logic, and rhetoric. That's the more modern variation of the words attributed to the 3-stage process of the trivium. In the ancient world, they called it knowledge, understanding, and wisdom. Knowledge is the grammar stage where you just get the data. And this is where most people get stuck. They get stuck in the acquisition of data, and they never begin converting the knowledge into power. That's where they get stuck. And this is part of the ritualistic, satanic conference of dark energies into our world and the dissemination of these energy distortions. They want people stuck in that knowledge step. The second step is you take all of that knowledge and you process it, and you perform logical transforms about it such that you can come to a truly accurate understanding of that knowledge, of that whole data set. Without true understanding, you don't have discernment. All you have is a lot of chatter. You have a lot of all these building blocks and pieces and all this data all over the place. And it can become like a cluttered desk or a cluttered computer. Okay, unless you weed it down and understand the most important aspects that need to be understood, and you really have that understanding correct, then you're not really in a true position to convert it into true power. Because when you truly have accurate understanding and discernment, then you move into stage 3, which is acting upon that knowledge and then putting that knowledge back out into the world in a distilled and powerful form. And that is wisdom. Wisdom is not knowledge in and of itself. Wisdom is doing the right thing with what you have come to know and understand. It is taking knowledge and understanding and putting them into the world in a moral capacity. And that's what it truly means to be a spiritual warrior. Anyone who has not begun the process of doing that is not a spiritual warrior. They're not on the battlefield. This isn't about the intellectual curiosity of continually accruing more and more and more data. If you're at that place, you're in a spiritual trap. You have to put it out there for other people. We have to counter the dark occult rituals by conducting our own rituals of telling the truth and putting the truth out there into the world for other people's educational benefit and their own spiritual growth, and eventually leading to activation and enlightenment, and them also passing the knowledge along. And so that's how the truth and the energy that we really need to propagate eventually snowballs and picks up momentum. That's what I am here to tell people that they need to do. They need to activate, take real world action in the world. And that means you have to learn the skill sets that you require. You're going to need to understand how technology works, because that's the mechanism in today's world for the publishing and communication of this knowledge. If we don't understand how to put it out there for others to benefit from it, we're not on the spiritual battlefield. So this is what my entire work is, to try to encourage and inspire and activate people to do. For more of my work and information, you can visit whatonearthishappening.com. I'll turn it back over to David and say thank you to everyone who's been involved in this space today. It was wonderful.
And I hope all you guys are giving Mark a follow. Once again, Mark has been in this game for a very, very long time, putting out unbelievable, concise, distilled information for you guys. So definitely give him a follow. And David, close it out for us.
Yeah, well, I'll pick up Mark's point. Wisdom. Wisdom is a word that we hear so little of compared with how much we should hear it. I've had this phrase I've been saying for decades, which is that we have a world, not least the left side of the brain, that appears to be clever in its intellect. And what is intellect? It's memory, it's accumulation of data. But without wisdom, cleverness can lead us down a very dark road. Cleverness without wisdom is actually the most destructive force on earth. And we've had this perception of being clever, and we've tricked ourselves into believing that cleverness, intellectual cleverness, is somehow the same as intelligence. It's certainly not the same as innate intelligence. And from innate intelligence comes wisdom. It's like that quote from Socrates: wisdom is knowing how little we know. That's the first point. So you know from the start there's always more to know. That's wisdom. The lack of wisdom is to say, I know what I need to know. I've got it. I have this belief system and I've got my certainty. That's not wisdom. And so wisdom will tell you why. The intellect, if you research with the intellect, it'll tell you what. Well, this is happening, that's happening. Wisdom will tell you why it's happening. It will tell you the context in which it's happening. It will have discernment. Wisdom has this filter that can see bullshit from 100 yards away. This is what is being suppressed in the human mind, human awareness, more than anything else, wisdom. And if we can start from that basic proviso that whatever we know, there's always more to know, then wisdom would never fall for a religious belief system. It would never fall for science is always right, follow the science. Wisdom would always question everything, because it realizes that whatever your religious belief, whatever that religious belief is, whatever the scientific belief is, whatever the cultural belief is, it's only a belief. There's always more to know. Wisdom is constantly searching, not just for the cutting edge, but to go beyond it. And that's what is going to get us out of this situation. Wisdom.
David, very, very, very well said. I just got word from the host that he may lose a connection, so I just wanted to let you know that. But were you done with that statement?
No, that's what I was going to say.
All right, great.
It's wisdom that is being suppressed. That's really what's missing. That's the missing piece. And if we can get that by realizing that there's always more to know, therefore our mind is always open to other possibilities, that's where wisdom lies.
Very well said, my friend. So, David, I will see you. We're going to keep these Fridays, right?
I'm open to anything, mate.
Yeah. All right. Cool. So we'll keep the Friday space. Today was a pretty good turnout. And Mark, David, you guys have been great today. I really suggest anyone who listened to this space to listen to the recording, because there was some gems dropped in here today. And I want to thank you guys for all for coming. Once again, Barcoin makes this all possible. We had a lot of great things coming to fruition right now. So follow our main account, keep abreast of what is going on. And if you are in the crypto scene, you're definitely going to want to take a look at it. So with that being said, everybody have a wonderful weekend. And thank you for coming. And I'll see you guys in 2 weeks.
Thanks, mate. Cheers, Mark. All the best.
Thank you, guys.
Take care, everybody.